Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out how the mod subculture changed society forever.
Boom, 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 boom. Gonna shoot you right down, right off of your feet.
People getting arrested.
I love the way you walk.
Okay. Oh,
From
Ted's 1955, Mods 1964, Swinging London 1967. He just started talking, sorry to stop it.
From Teddy Boys to Swinging London, the mods were the British subculture that thrust the past into the future. Ready to leave austerity and conformity behind, they embraced all things modern. Modern dress, modern music, modern transportation,
Oh.
and they made it their own.
That's why they're called mods. I've heard of I've heard of mods, but I had no idea why they're called mods. I thought it was a hairstyle or something. This is making sense.
In 1964, the world was on the brink of a revolution, and the mods were at the forefront of it all. But what exactly made the mods such a pivotal piece of cultural history, and how is their impact still felt today? We have much to learn from the mods' love of music, fashion, freedom, and how they embrace the moment. Join us as we uncover the layers of the subculture that redefine society and explore the legendary musicians behind this transformative movement. The mods didn't just reflect the culture, but reshaped it entirely. Can we ever recreate their freewheeling creative way of life? Let's find out as we explore how the mods changed society forever.
Whoa. Whoa. They look like they're having a good time. Look at this. Oh, what a mod. So I reacted to another video about the Teds, or Teddy Boys. There were also Teddy Girls, apparently. And they were called that because they took the style from Edwardian England and made it their own. And Ted is a nickname for Edward. My reference for mods are the Beatles, the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night, because I think a journalist in there asks one of them, I think it's George, she says, are you a mod or a rocker? Something like that. And he says, I'm a mocker. It's kind of funny. But I don't know, what makes a mod a mod? Like, how are they different from Teddy's? I could see it different in the hair. There's like a different hairstyle. On the left here, that's the Teddy. They had the pompadour thing, like Elvis type stuff. But I guess the mods were later. More of the Beatle haircut, I guess.
Join us as we uncover the layers of the
Riding
subculture that
Vespas.
redefine society and explore the legendary musicians behind this transformative movement.
Awesome.
The mods didn't just reflect the culture, but reshaped it entirely. Can we ever recreate their freewheeling creative way of life? Let's find out as we explore how the mods changed society forever.
Look at that Vespa.
We were very fortunate that everything was possible in those days. And we were fearless. Most of our parents were shell-shocked. So they never talked about the war. There was no communication. So you just had to make your own way. And we made terrible mistakes, but we tried. And I think creatively and artistically, we were very successful.
He said their parents were shell-shocked. That makes sense. Wow. I never really thought about that. And he says they didn't really talk about the war. That would create such a strange atmosphere to live in a place where all these buildings have been bombed out, but no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to talk about how that happened or how they're feeling about living in that environment. Wow. Interesting. And it made the young people act out. Apparently. Wow.
The mod generation grew up in post-war Britain, often playing and exploring around bomb sites that remain scattered throughout London.
Yeah, just sorry to keep stopping it, but I have heard from some of my viewers in the comments that you guys used to play around in these blown out buildings. It does look fun. When I was a kid, I used to play around construction sites. Like if there was a house being built in the neighborhood, me and my friends would go over there and play around. It was fun. So I kind of get it, but this is on another level. This is dangerous.
Often playing and exploring around bomb sites that remain scattered throughout London. Their parents had lived through the harrowing experiences of World War II, enduring air raids, rations, and a disrupted way of life. And prior to that, their grandparents had not only witnessed the devastation of World War II, but also the horrors of World War I. This legacy of conflict left a deep imprint on British society, instilling resilience but also an atmosphere of austerity. Conformity, austerity and poverty ruled the day. By the time the mods came of age in the 1950s, they were ready to cast off the shadows of the past. Rejecting what their parents held on to for stability, mods embraced modernity, style and a sense of rebellion. They sought to break free from the grey, war-scarred streets of their childhood and build an identity rooted in optimism, colour, and an urban, cosmopolitan outlook that felt light years away from the burdens their parents and grandparents had carried. The Teddy Boys, who came first with their distinctive Edwardian-style suits, quiffed hairstyles, and love for early rock and roll, were among the first British youth subcultures to emerge in the 1950s. As the 1950s progressed, many Teddy Boys evolved into rockers or leather boys, embracing a harder, more rebellious image.
Interesting. So it went Teddy Boy, rocker, mod. I have heard that when the Beatles, in the early days of the Beatles, they adopted leather gear because they would play for 6 to 8 hours every night in Germany, and the leather was better for sweating. But, you know, the narrator has said the word austerity several times, and I know what that means, but I just want to look up the exact definition. Sternness or severity of manner or attitude, extreme plainness and simplicity of style or appearance, conditions characterized by severity, sternness, or I don't know what that means. Let's look that up. Asceticism?
Asceticism.
I said it right. Severe self-discipline and avoidance of all forms of indulgence, typically for religious reasons. Okay. That's kind of what I thought austerity meant. A propensity towards stoicism and conservative spending and not indulging. Okay.
Boys evolved into rockers or leather boys, embracing a harder, more rebellious image. Influenced by American biker culture, they traded in their drake coats and crepe-soled shoes for leather jackets, jeans, and heavy boots.
Look out.
Motorcycles became central to their identity, symbolizing freedom and defiance.
Yeah.
They embraced the sounds of American artists like Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Gene Vincent, whose energetic performances and raw driving rhythms reflected the rebellion and excitement that rockers sought. The mods, on the other hand, emerged...
Yo, I gotta say, I love that period of American music. The 50s, the late 50s. My dad used to listen to that all the time. That was my dad's favorite type of music.
The mods, on the other hand, emerged as a new wave of youth culture beginning in 1958, partly in response to the Teddy Boys and later the rockers.
Hang on. I just want to read this. Are you a trad or a mod? It was when Noel said, it depends whether you want trad or mod, that I first realized how out of my depth I was going to be. He had come round to see me because he had heard that I wanted to see some jazz clubs. To me, jazz was just jazz, something that sets my feet tapping and sends my 7-year-old son into wild gyrations of the kind that would be disallowed on 6-5 special. I don't know what that is. But there I was, faced with the fact that there are rival schools of jazz. Oh, okay. The 58. Tony from Italy. The Ted is dead. To be a Tony boy is in. What? Your suits must have the Italian... I can't see what that is. Look, if you want to be one of the cool men. Gotta get that Italian suit.
Emerged as a new wave of youth culture beginning in 1958, partly in response to the Teddy Boys and later the rockers. The mods took a different direction, aiming for a more sophisticated modern look. Mods embraced Italian fashion, favouring slim-cut suits, button-down shirts and sleek shoes, which contrasted with the Ted's Edwardian-inspired outfits.
Okay. British music and style evolved.
Essentially, people think the Beatles were pop, but in actual fact they came from a bohemian background where they had a skiffle group, and they were called the Quarrymen. And they were just playing acoustic guitars. And Lonnie Donegan had 22 #1 records, and you couldn't call them pop, and you couldn't call them folk, you couldn't call them jazz or blues. They called them skiffle.
He's rocking out in my mind. Y'all, put a Gibson Les Paul in his hands and he's a rocker. He's rocking out. Like, that's heavy. It's all about the passion, you know? Well
Their
done,
clothing
Lonnie.
was about crafting an image that was smart and uniquely theirs, reflecting their desire to stand out in a world that often seemed drab and uniform. Musically, mods originally gravitated more towards jazz and R&B, attempting to redefine themselves in a more polished light than the music that had defined the Teds. The mods' affinity for scooters also set them apart, as they saw Vespa and Lambretta scooters as stylish, urban and practical. In many ways, the mods were a reaction against the Teds, some of which had been involved in riots and other menacing behavior. Mods were aspiring to a cleaner, more cosmopolitan lifestyle that embraced a European flair and emphasized a forward-thinking outlook, moving beyond the 1950s rock and roll nostalgia that the Teds represented. For a period, the rockers ruled the roads and towns across Britain, creating a dominant and rugged presence with their motorcycles, leather jackets and rebellious attitude. Often spotted on powerful bikes like Triumphs and Nortons, they roared through the streets, taking over highways and congregating at roadside cafes such as the iconic Ace Cafe in London. Their style was raw, and their gatherings at cafes and clubs became hubs of camaraderie and a shared defiance against societal norms. With their distinctive look and culture, the rockers symbolized a kind of freedom that was both thrilling and intimidating to the more traditional society around them. For a time, they were the undisputed kings of the streets, their roaring engines a soundtrack to an era of unbridled independence and rebellion. But soon, a new group was starting to emerge on the streets of London. The Modernists, later known simply as the Mods.
So the Vespa fascination came from it being like a slant on the motorcycles that the Teddies were riding, or the rockers were riding. Yeah, the rockers, not the Teddies, right? Yeah. So he said the Ace Cafe. Show me on a map. Oh, okay. I wonder if this is the same one. Oh, it's busy. Look at that. Oh, there's a whole Wikipedia about Ace Cafe. Ace Cafe is an old transport cafe located near Wembley. It is historically a notable venue in motorcycle culture. The original cafe opened in 1938 and closed in 1969. It reopened on the original site in 1997. Okay, good. Reverend Bill Shergold initially visited to invite them to the 59 Club, the Rockers. The cafe was rebuilt in 1949 after an air raid caused damage during World War II. Events in the post-war environment made Ace a success. The emergence of the teenager and increase in traffic and the British motorcycle industry at its peak. Young people started to meet at the cafe to socialize, gather their motorcycles, and listen to rock and roll on jukeboxes. Bands and motorcycle enthusiast groups formed there. Okay. All right.
Unlike the Teddy Boys, many of whom had served in the military through compulsory national service, this post-war generation was free from such obligations. The Mods took advantage of this newfound freedom to shape their own identity.
Oh, hang on. Wow, okay, so many of the Teddy Boys served in World War II. But the Mods didn't.
Such obligations. The Mods took advantage of this newfound freedom to shape their own identity, unburdened by the same ties to tradition. They were young, urban, and driven by a desire to look forward rather than back. They embraced a sleek European-inspired style that favored scooters, setting themselves apart from the rockers' aesthetic.
Some headlights.
As they gathered in clubs to dance to American R&B, jazz, and ska, the Mods cultivated a lifestyle centered around fashion, music, and a distinctly modern outlook that resonated with their sense of breaking away from the past. Wow, with no need for military service, the Mods represented a shift towards a more pleasure-driven culture, celebrating style, nightlife, and a uniquely cosmopolitan vision for Britain's youth. The Mods benefited from the post-war economic boom that began to improve the British economy in the late 1950s and early 1960s.
Good.
As job opportunities expanded and wages rose, young people had more disposable income than their parents had ever experienced.
Wow,
Unlike
that's
the
a big
previous
change.
generation, which had been shaped by wartime austerity, the Mods were free to spend their earnings on fashion, music, and leisure. They channeled this newfound wealth into cultivating a stylish, polished look and meticulously accessorized scooters, becoming symbols of their success and status. This era of relative prosperity allowed mods to define themselves through consumerism, embracing the latest trends and creating a distinct culture around their spending habits.
Wow, I'm picturing rockers and mods not getting along. And I'm picturing motorcycle gangs harassing these scooter gangs. They're not really scooter gangs, but, you know? Like, what did the rockers think of the mods? I think they probably hated them. I mean, I'm into the scooter thing, but next to a motorcycle, a full-on motorcycle, it's kind of a wimpy mode of transportation. Although the full leather outfit is kind of like, I could see how that would be out of style is what I'm trying to say. Wait, so their parents, and probably their grandparents, didn't have all this disposable income to spend on scooters and suits and music. Records.
The improved job market gave them the means to regularly attend nightclubs, buy records and travel, establishing a lifestyle that celebrated both personal freedom and the ability to indulge in life's pleasures. The mods lived for the day.
Fun.
The early mods were drawn to a dynamic mix of music that included the infectious dance rhythms of the twist, the sophisticated sounds of modern jazz, and the raw energy of American R&B. This eclectic musical taste set them apart as they frequented clubs to dance to these diverse styles, cultivating a scene that was both stylish and vibrant with music at its core.
It's funny to hear this narrator say, American R&B. So music was at the core of this revolution. To the A's. Oh, Miles Davis. Of course.
See the girl with the diamond ring? She knows how to shake that thing all right now.
Where the people are so gay, twisting the night away.
This sounds a groovy hi-fi. I say yeah. That's what I say yeah.
Never heard of Georgie Fame. Born Clive Powell, in English R&B and jazz music. Oh, that's why I haven't heard of him. He had a string of hits in the 60s. He's still performing now, often working with contemporaries such as Alan Price, Van Morrison, and Bill Wyman. Fame is the only British music act to achieve 3 UK #1 hits with his only top 10 chart entries. Yeah, Get Away, and The Ballad of Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, Georgie Fame. I was about to read this, but I don't want the algorithm to, I'll let you read it yourself.
Are Purple Hearts taken generally here? Do you take them, for example?
Well, I don't take them myself.
What would you say?
Well, I mean, when you go down the West End of a Saturday night and you stay up all night, I mean, you just got to take them to keep awake.
How many Purple Hearts do you need to stay up all night?
Well, that's 20 to 30. Keep you awake till about, keep you lively till about 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock.
What? So Purple Hearts is what they're calling that A word. And they're taking how many? 20 to 30.
Keep you awake till about, keep you lively till about 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. Then
that can't be good for you.
You become normal again.
With your time, apart from dancing and going up the West End, are you interested in anything else?
No. All I think of is the West End and dance halls and girls.
That bring in £10 to £20 a week. I asked mod girls who'd left school at 15 if they wished they'd stayed there longer.
Yes.
You all do?
Yes.
Why didn't you then?
I got fed up with school and just didn't want to stay. I wanted to go to work, but afterwards you realise that you should have stayed at school and you've been better off.
Did you learn a lot at school?
No. Well, I went to 2 schools. I went to a girls' school where I did learn something, but when I went to another school, I didn't learn anything at all.
Whose fault was that, you think?
The school.
Whose fault was it you didn't?
Well, we went to the same school, and I'd say it was the school. The classes were too big, the teachers were only about 19, 20. They couldn't do nothing with us, control us. We just used to walk out when we wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame the school, can you?
Yes, you can.
Oh, you can't. It's up to yourselves.
Keep us under control. I mean, we didn't realise then. If we'd realised then, I would have learned something.
Didn't your parents tell you it was important to stay in school?
No. Well, they wanted me to go and get money, really.
My mum and dad wanted me to stay on, but I didn't want to.
Do you know what they say? They say that you boys go up to them and stare them in the eyes, screw them, as they say.
Oh, yeah, well, we think they're girls sometimes.
Okay. Okay, there is some there is some rubbing between the groups. So the rockers think the mods look like girls.
What else is there about rockers that makes you think they're superior to mods?
Well, they look like men. They don't look like women. Well, fancy going out in the mud, you wouldn't. And everybody sort of looks at you. You wouldn't know if you was looking at the girl or the bloke, would you?
Is the difference just a matter of dress?
I have to hear what she says again. I could.
Well, they look like men. They don't look like women. Well, fancy going out in the mud, you wouldn't. And everybody sort of looks at you. You wouldn't know if you was looking at the girl or the bloke, would you?
Is the difference just a matter of dress?
Oh, the girl or the bloke. These closed captions sometimes make it more difficult to understand.
Well, they look like men. They don't look like women. Well,
They look like me. They don't look like women.
fancy going out in the mud, you wouldn't. And everybody sort of looks at you. You wouldn't know if you was looking at the girl or the bloke, would you?
If you go out with a mod, people would look at you and they wouldn't know if they were looking at you or the bloke.
Is the difference
Okay, I think that's what she said. All right, back on
just a
track.
matter of dress? Would you say that? I mean, would you say that you're better off or rich, richer or more intelligent or what?
Well, I wouldn't say we're richer. I think the mentality is completely different. I mean, you see most of these mods, they leave school at 15, straight into some unskilled job, and they never get anywhere in it. And just so they've got a bit of money to spend on clothes, on a hairdryer, and a few other things, on their makeup, of course, and all their lipstick and that. And well, of course, when you get the
Well, you're
rockers,
better educated, you take me.
well,
Too many people here would you...
Wait, so that's interesting. Are the rockers more educated than the mods? See, the rockers seem like they would be more wild, more prone to aggression and not thinking about the future. But maybe they're not. Maybe they're more future aware. They are a little bit older, right? They're a few years older, I think. They came around first. So maybe the mods are a little younger and they are living for the day, in the moment, which is what they mentioned. Interesting.
Too many people here would you say take Purple Hearts?
No, I don't think so. None of my mates here do
Oh.
anyway.
Straight
I think
edge.
it's because they're bored quite a lot of the time and they just want to get a kick. So these Purple Heart sort of tablets, they give them a kick and they take those, and once they start, they don't stop.
Why should they be more bored than you are?
Well, they've got nothing to do, have they? I mean, if anything goes wrong with their bikes or their machines, they just don't do it themselves. Put it into someone else. The garage to get it done there. But if anything goes wrong with one of our bikes, we do it ourselves.
Apart from motorbike...
Wow. So the rockers are working on their motorcycles when they get bored. The mods have the money and the ignorance to just take their Vespa to the shop and get ripped off.
Apart from motorbikes and boys which go together, what else are you interested in?
Well, we go bowling, pictures, dance halls, motorcycle meetings when they're on.
If you saw a fight starting between rocks and mods, what would you do about it?
Wouldn't be much I could do as a girl, would there?
By 1963,
Wow, interesting. See, when the mods first started being defined at the beginning of this video, I thought I would be a mod, I wouldn't be a rocker. But after hearing the rockers talk, I think I might be a rocker and not a mod. Probably depends on what age I would have been at,
Wouldn't be much I could do as a girl, would there?
By 1963, the mods had moved firmly into the mainstream, with their sharp fashion and love for soul and R&B music becoming widely popular across Britain. No longer an underground movement, the mod style and lifestyle began to influence broader culture, from fashion magazines to popular music, marking a shift as mods became icons of British youth culture. The mods were meticulous about their style, often sketching out exactly how they wanted their outfits to look and bringing these designs to their tailors. This allowed them to have custom-made clothing that perfectly fit their vision,
That's
showcasing
fancy.
their commitment to a sharp, individualized look that set them apart from the mainstream. They were renowned for
boots.
their impeccable taste in suits, favoring tailored pieces with sharp, narrow lapels and often a distinctive ticket pocket on the jacket. Every aspect of their look was meticulously considered. From the fit of the suit to the exact positioning of the pocket, nothing was left to chance. Mods took great pride in presenting a polished appearance, often spending a significant portion of their earnings on clothing to ensure their style was flawless. Their suits, typically Italian-inspired and slim-fitting, conveyed an air of sophistication and modernity that set them apart from the more rugged look of the rockers. The parkas were to the mods what the leather jacket was to the rockers, a practical solution to allow them to ride freely secure from the elements while a hallmark of their style. But while the rockers rode motorcycles, the modernists rode scooters.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be a mod. I'm not that into clothes, as you can see. But I don't identify with black leather and motorcycles. Maybe I would, I don't know. Surely some people went from being a rocker and became a mod, right? There's probably some in-between folks. The rockers actually seem like they have deeper intellect about life, more wisdom, more zen. You know, I got my one black leather jacket. It keeps me safe if I fall off my motorcycle. When my motorcycle makes a weird clanking noise or it doesn't run, I work on it myself and I fix it. But these mods are like, oh, what am I wearing? I gotta get the stitch right. I need the latest fashion. It's kind of shallow on the surface. And they're riding Vespas that they don't know how to fix.
But while the rockers rode motorcycles, the modernists rode scooters. They dressed differently, listened to different music, and had a different philosophy on life. As the mods and rockers both rose to prominence in the early 1960s, a fierce animosity developed between the two groups.
Okay, this is, yeah. Seeing the motorcycles next to the Vespas is hilarious. You know, the whole black leather jacket thing on a motorcycle is so ubiquitous with rebellion. It's interesting that the rebellion from that is Vespas and Italian suits.
Prominence in the early 1960s, a fierce animosity developed between the two groups, fueled by their contrasting styles, values, and lifestyles. For mods, the rockers' rough appearance and heavy bikes symbolized an outdated way of thinking, while rockers viewed mods as superficial and effeminate. This cultural rivalry became a defining aspect of the era, marking a clear line between two distinct visions of youth, identity, and rebellion in post-war Britain. The rockers initially outnumbered and outsized the mods, but that would not last. Over time, the mods began to grow in popularity, and they eventually outnumbered the rockers. The desire for the validation of identity began. The media initially looked favorably upon the mods, writing articles about their attire choices, which inspired other young people to follow suit.
Yeah.
However, that did not last once the fighting began.
You and your friends mods or rockers?
Well, we're mods when we're dressed up, you know. Mods!
What caused all this trouble yesterday?
Boredom.
On whose part?
Well, on both.
What happened?
Well, there was lots of things, you know. They started, you know what rockers are like, don't you?
Well, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, they, you know, their motorbikes started bashing into the scooters and knocking down motors.
What else happened?
So we, you know, well, it was their fault as well as ours.
Have you ever seen a fight?
Yeah.
Who started it the time you saw it?
Well, it looked like the mods started it.
But they say that one of the reasons why you people wear boots is because it helps you put the boot in.
No, I've never yet seen a rocker put a boot in. It's mainly protection. If you get into a fight with a mod, you've got to watch it all the time, you know. They'll pull your hair, they'll claw at you.
Well, why is it that
They'll pull your hair and they'll claw at you. That's kind of like, you know, like, I don't want to be gendery, but that's kind of a feminine trait, right? Traditionally. Not anymore.
Well, why is it that there is this bad feeling between the two groups, do you think?
Well, because they sort of take the rise out of us, and it's our way of getting back at them. Because they seem to class themselves as the superior beings, whereas we're supposed to be inferior because of the way we dress and things.
If you were, say, in Clacton or Brighton at Whitsun and a fight started, what would you do?
Just walk away or stand and watch it.
Would you deplore it? Would you think it was a bad thing?
Well, I saw calling what they were fighting over.
Some fights are justifiable, are they?
Oh, yes. In some cases, well, they just know the way out, it's that fighting.
On March 29, 19...
See, the rockers have more perspective, more wisdom. This is the opposite of what I would thought it would be. I would think the black leather jacket with the pompadours and the motorcycles would be causing all the trouble, and the mods would just be polite with good manners and you know, traditional values. This is weird.
On March 29, 1964, the coastal town of Clacton became a flashpoint for the growing tensions between the mods and rockers. Over the Easter weekend, groups of young mods, dressed in their sharp suits and riding scooters, arrived at the seaside resort, as did rockers, clad in leather and mounted on their powerful motorcycles.
Okay.
What began as a typical holiday gathering quickly descended into chaos as scuffles broke out between the two groups. The confrontation soon escalated into full-blown brawls, with the mods and rockers clashing in the streets, leaving a trail of broken windows and widespread damage. The weekend's disturbances started quietly enough on Good Friday as a trickle of mods began to arrive to have a good time. Later on during the day, the rockers began to turn up. Word got around both communities in London and the surrounding area that Clacton was the place to be for both the mods and the rockers, because not only were several of their own group there, but that the enemy was also there. This was enough to make Clacton the place to be that Easter.
Clacton? Where's Clacton? I've never even heard of Clacton. Show me on a map. Oh, a beach town. Oh, close to London. Okay. How far is it from London? Oh, it's just an hour-and-a-half drive. That's on a train. Surely they're taking their motorcycles. And that would be about 2.5 hours. That's a doable trip for a weekend getaway. Look at this. That's a nice beach. Beautiful. Cool. Oh, they got a Ferris wheel. They got multiple Ferris wheels. Great. Beautiful. Cool. Great. They got a McDonald's. They got that thing. Looks like a good place for a riot. It's great that these young people went to Clacton and embraced the spirit of Easter.
The trickle arriving on Friday turned into a torrent on Saturday as hundreds more arrived to join the fun and bolster their own side in case of any trouble.
Oh.
On Saturday evening, Freddie and the Dreamers played to a packed Blue Lagoon containing an audience of 1,200. And it was not long after this that the first clash between the two groups came in Pier Avenue as the two groups faced each other and boots, bottles and batons were swung around and thrown. The fighting went on all through the night with a brief respite just before dawn. But soon after breakfast time on Sunday, violence flared up again, with the windows of the pavilion being broken.
They gotta take a break in the fighting for Easter breakfast. It's the way Jesus would have wanted it, y'all. Oh, so word got out fast that there were fights Friday night, and then on Saturday, more mods and more rockers came from London to help out. Blue Lagoon. I don't think the Blue Lagoon is in Clacton anymore. Pier Street. That must be near the pier. So it must have been over here. He has risen.
But the greatly increased number of police gradually began to take control of the situation, and dozens of arrests were made, and the gangs began to break up. These disturbances led to front-page headlines in the national press. The Daily Mail said, Clacton represents a new high watermark in hooliganism. The events at Clacton were sensationalized by the media, which branded the youths as folk devils and warned of a moral panic sweeping the nation. For many, Clacton symbolized the growing unrest among Britain's youth and highlighted the deep-seated cultural divide between these two youth subcultures.
Folk devils. Wild Ones invade Seaside, 97 arrests. The Wild Ones invaded a seaside town yesterday, 1,000 fighting, drinking, roaring, rampaging teenagers on scooters and motorcycles. By last night, after a day of riots and bottles with police, 97 of them had been arrested. Look at this photo. You got a German Shepherd? I'm surprised that the mods didn't get just wiped out. Because those rockers are wearing boots. A motorcycle could easily take out a Vespa. A steel-toed boot could easily take out a Chelsea boot. Or some loafers. Or whatever they were wearing. You know?
This confrontation marked the beginning of a series of violent encounters that would punctuate 1964, etching the mods and rockers' rivalry into British cultural history. There wasn't much going on during this period, and so this gave the press the story they were waiting for. They played on the growing fear that young people were out of control. Since the end of the war, England saw the country change in unexpected ways, and some of the older generation was not ready.
I'm sorry, did this guy just get his
that young people in England saw the country change in unexpected ways, and some of the older generation was not ready for this. The newspapers had a captivated reader and a new subject to focus their attention. The police were ready to step in at the urging of the locals. The narrative is set.
How long have you lived in Cheltenham?
Most of my life.
Well, what's the mod setup here?
Well, there's more greasers, really, but the mods that they are can sort any greaser out, any load of greaser outs that come along.
The greasers are rocking?
Yeah.
Well, what happened last week? Why did the
Well, we were all up
start?
here minding our own business. We don't cause any trouble. And then the greasers come up here and start causing trouble.
What sort of things do they do?
Oh, they just kick scooters and not. If there's anybody who's smaller than them, or if there's a smaller number than them, they'll start pushing them about because they're not, you know. If there's equal numbers, they're soft.
Do you deliberately sort of pick fights with the greasers? Or
no, they pick fights with us because that's all the intelligence they've got.
Let's come across to you. Why do you go around with mods?
Well, I prefer them.
You what?
I prefer them. I wouldn't like to be seen around with one of those scruffy lads.
Do you like them because they dress properly and all this sort of thing? How long have you been a rocker?
She likes the style.
4 years.
What does this business of rocker really stand for? You know, why do you classify yourselves into mods and rockers?
Well, it's just motorcyclists, really.
Yeah. And this is really the way it all starts?
Yeah.
What do you do when you get together, such as in a place like this? You talk about motorcycling and what?
Yeah, talk about motorcycles, go for rides.
What sort of bike have you got yourself?
Norton Dominator.
Supposing that something, you know, what we've been hearing about a mod, a group of mods running over a rocker, what would you do? In other words, a group getting together and beating a rocker up.
Well, that's what happened last week.
This is definitely what happened, is it?
Yes. 2 of our lads got done over by about 12, 15 of them.
Margate, another popular seaside town, became a hotspot for the ongoing...
Tribalism. I don't know what to say, I'm just absorbing it.
12, 15 of them.
Margate, another popular seaside town, became a hotspot for the ongoing battles between mods and rockers between May 16th through 18th. As with other resorts, Margate saw an influx of young people from both subcultures, each determined to assert their presence and dominance. Tensions quickly erupted into violence, with mods and rockers clashing along the seafront, overturning deck chairs, and engaging in street fights that left a wake of destruction. The confrontations were chaotic, with scenes of mods wielding scooter chains and rockers throwing punches as they fought to defend their respective territories and identities. Police came out in force to stop them as the two factions hurled bottles and deck chairs at each other, used koshes and knives, and brawled along the promenade outside Dreamland.
Jeez.
The seaside town of Brighton became the stage for one of the most notorious confrontations between the mods and rockers.
Hang on. Before we go to another location, I want to look up Margate. On a map. Oh, okay. Okay, it's on this point. Margate. Another beach town.
Have you any idea how these punch-ups started last week?
Well, there's over, I think there's 10 mods beating over a rocker or something, and then they broke out.
So this was the start of the fight. In fact, some mods got onto a rocker.
Yes.
Do you know this definitely?
Yes, it's definitely.
You think this is right?
Over that Whitsun weekend, hundreds of young mods...
They have no idea how similar they are. It's all a style thing. That's all that separates them. Maybe a couple years of age, right? This is strange.
Definitely.
You think this is right?
Over that Whitsun weekend, hundreds of young mods on scooters and rockers on motorcycles descended on the resort, leading to a series of violent clashes that would become emblematic of the era's youth conflicts.
Wow.
Tensions flared as the two groups faced off along the beachfront, throwing stones, bottles, and even deck chairs at each other. The skirmishes continued for hours, spilling into the town's streets and attracting both police intervention and significant media attention. The press quickly sensationalized the event, dubbing it a battle, and fueling a wave of public concern over the so-called moral decay of British youth. Headlines decried the riots and featured images of mods and rockers being arrested, further embedding their rivalry into the public consciousness. Fights on both seaside resorts resulted in many arrests. 75 in Margate, and in Brighton the cells were filled and arrests had to be deemed necessary. By the time the summer's final bank holiday approached in August 1964, in Hastings, local authorities were prepared for trouble.
The jails were full. Hastings, I've heard of that. Where's that? Show me on a... Oh. The riots are moving around the bottom of England. Oh, I guess Brighton is over here somewhere, right? Is it? Where's Brighton? Brighton. Right, there it is. Okay, yes. Why these coastal towns, I wonder? It's funny that it's all happening around these holidays. People go on vacation to a coastal town. It's interesting, too, that the older generation, these people's parents, they were busy fighting a war. But these kids, they don't have a war to fight, so they're fighting each other. It's like there's an aggression built up. They don't realize how similar they are. You guys are the same. You're the same. It's just what jacket you wear and what vehicle you drive.
By the time the summer's final bank holiday approached in August 1964, in Hastings, local authorities were prepared for trouble. Anticipating the arrival of mods and rockers, extra police officers were stationed throughout the town to keep the peace.
Okay.
Despite these precautions, fights still broke out, as members of both groups converged on Hastings, reigniting their ongoing feud. The events in Hastings marked the end of a particularly volatile summer, one that cemented the mods and rockers as symbols of youthful rebellion in the public eye.
I'm just realizing that these mods rode scooters all the way from London to these coastal towns. It's hard to think that a scooter could do that. I mean, sure they technically could, but the wheels are small. That couldn't be a comfortable ride. That must have taken a lot longer on a scooter. Right? The mods, music, and style evolve again. What happens next?
When Brian Epstein began managing the Beatles, he saw the potential to transform their image to polished pop icons. At the time, the band was heavily influenced by the rebellious leather-clad style they had adopted during their time in Hamburg, Germany, where photographer Astrid Kirchherr helped shape their early aesthetic. Epstein's influence in guiding the Beatles toward a mod-inspired look played a crucial role in their rise to global fame, helping to bridge the gap between rock and roll's rebellious spirit and the modern, stylish sensibility that appealed to the masses. When the Beatles landed in the US, they seemed to be able to control the media with their sense of humour. Their quick wit, smart style and incredible music seemed to put the world at their feet. Soon everything British becomes cool. Music and fashion and everything hip was coming out of England, and the mods ruled the world.
Okay, interesting. So the Beatles were rockers. And Brian Epstein was like, guys, that's outdated. Brian Epstein knew style. It was a good call. It worked.
What will the well-dressed mod be wearing this quit weekend?
He'll either be wearing a white hipster slacks or blue hipster slacks with either a cycling shirt, which is a zip here and block stripes across there, mainly with white ground or a blue ground, or on the other hand be wearing a t-shirt with a large emblem on front or on back. This is what the well-dressed mod will be wearing this weekend.
Dave Clark, would you consider yourself a trendsetter in mod clothing?
Well, it's very hard to say, really. I think anybody that's in the public eye, I suppose people take notice of, but whether you set trends or not, well, that's up for the people to answer themselves, you know.
What is the trend at the moment?
I think the modern trend is going very big, which I'm all for.
The jackets are waisted like
yeah,
this?
you get either 3 or 4 button waisted jackets, vents at the backs. Well, hats are coming in quite a lot, but myself, I still wear Cuban heel boots, you know, which are so the rage, but...
What do you think of the mods?
I think they're great.
Several musicians in the 1960s embraced the mod look and infused their music with the vibrant energy and style of the subculture, helping to shape the mod movement's cultural impact. Bands such as the Kinks had a hit song, dedicated follower of fashion, celebrated the obsession with style and fashion, blending sharp wit with a catchy British pop sound. The Small Faces, known for their stylish suits and soulful rock, epitomised the mod spirit. Rod Stewart's early years included a stint as a vocalist with Long John Baldry and the Hoochie Coochie Men, where he honed his R&B chops, aligning with the mod taste for authentic soulful music. The Who, another quintessential mod band, captured the rebellious energy of the mods with hits like My Generation and I Can't Explain, while also sporting the mod look, complete with tailored suits, Union Jack patterns and Royal Air Force roundels. The Dave Clark Five, though more pop-oriented, also adopted elements of mod style and performed energetic, beat-driven music that resonated with the mod ethos.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now. The mods took over. None of these bands were wearing black leather. And I can see now how this style moves into the later 60s with all the crazy colors and you know, hippie stuff.
These bands not only dressed the part, but also reflected the mod lifestyle through their music, blending rock, R&B and pop influences to create a sound that was both modern and unmistakably British, leaving an enduring mark on the music and fashion of the era. In the early 1960s, a number of British musicians, including Pete Townshend of The Who, were art students whose creative pursuits extended beyond music and into the visual arts. This background deeply influenced their approach to both their music and their image, leading them to draw inspiration from the burgeoning pop art movement. The Who in particular began to explore the bold, colourful and ironic style of pop artists like Andy Warhol, incorporating these elements into their visual identity and performances. Townsend and his bandmates embraced pop art's celebration of consumer culture, blending it with a distinctly British twist. This influence was evident in The Who's iconic album covers, stage designs and the way they dressed, with graphic symbols like the Union Jack and Royal Air Force roundel becoming as integral to their identity as their music. By integrating pop art's vibrant aesthetic into their work, The Who not only paid homage to contemporary art movements, but also helped elevate rock music into an expressive, multi-dimensional art form that was both visually and sonically impactful, resonating with the youthful spirit of the mod movement.
Wow. Yeah, I guess none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. I didn't think of Andy Warhol being influential in Britain or on the music. That's interesting. Pop art. Wow. Okay.
And sonically impactful, resonating with the youthful spirit of the mod movement. Carnaby Street in London became a central hub for mods in the 1960s, offering an array of boutique shops that catered to their unique sense of style. Musicians and fans alike flocked to this vibrant street to find the latest in mod fashion, with many of the era's most popular bands, like The Who and the Small Faces, frequenting its iconic stores.
Carnaby Street? Where's Carnaby Street? Is that on the West End? Show me on a map. Oh, it's close to central London. It is on the west side of central London. Did the Beatles have a store here? Is that where the Beatles store was? Oh, it was on Baker Street. Okay. That's nearby, though, looks like. Maybe not.
As the mod subculture flourished throughout the early 1960s, it gradually evolved into what became known as swinging London, a broader cultural phenomenon that encompassed fashion, music, art, and an exuberant lifestyle.
Okay.
By the mid-1960s, the vibrant energy of the mods had fused with the rising influence of pop art, youth culture, and a newfound sense of British identity that celebrated creativity and innovation. Carnaby Street, once a mod hotspot, became an epicenter for swinging London, drawing in tourists, celebrities and fashionistas eager to embrace the latest trends. The mod emphasis on style, individuality and nightlife laid the groundwork for this new era, leading to an explosion of colourful patterns and experimental fashion trends. Bands that began as mod icons like The Who and the Kinks evolved their music to reflect the experimental sounds of the time, while designers like Mary Quant popularised the miniskirt and revolutionised women's fashion. Swinging London became a global symbol of youth, freedom and modernity, transforming the mod movement's urban sophistication into a broader celebration of culture and setting the stage for the countercultural revolution that would define the late 1960s.
Well, who was this? Mary Quant. She popularized the mini skirt. Funny that her name is Mary Quaint. She became an instrumental figure. Oh, she died last year. She became an instrumental figure in the 1960s London-based mod and youth fashion movements and played a prominent role in London's swinging 60s culture. She was one of the designers who took credit for the miniskirt and hot pants. The mod mentality just spread out and became the 60s in London. The mod mentality spread around the world, really. That's wild. It's really interesting to see how the rocker thing the style is very American in my mind. Motorcycles, black leather jackets. But the mod thing seems more British. It's like a reflection of the Americanisms. They liked American R&B, but they had their European suits. And I feel like the mod thing was open to the pop art stuff, which was kind of American. But then the mod mentality spread over into the American hippie culture later, I guess.
As the late 1960s approached, the original mod movement began to fade, with many mods drawn to the emerging hippie culture and its emphasis on peace, love, and psychedelia. The clean-cut, tailored look of the mods gave way to the free-flowing styles of the counterculture, while the hard-edged hard mods evolved into early skinheads. By the end of the decade, the mod scene had largely dissipated, seemingly relegated to history. However, the 1970s saw a mod revival that rekindled interest in the sharp style, music, and rebellious spirit of the original movement. This revival was fueled in part by bands like The Jam, who embraced mod fashion and musical influences, and by the release of Quadrophenia, The Who's rock opera, and the subsequent 1979 film adaptation. Quadrophenia, which follows the story of Jimmy, a young mod navigating the turbulence of the 1960s, became a cult classic and a defining piece of mod lore.
Is that Sting?
The film portrayed the iconic clashes between mods and rockers, particularly the violent events of 1964, adding to the mythos of these seaside battles and their place in British cultural history. The success...
Is that Sting? Yo, was Sting in Quadrophenia? Hang on. Sting was in it. He played Ace Face. I'm sorry, what year did this come out? 79. What? Okay, the Police were formed in 1977. Okay, so the Police were a band already. I didn't know that. How did it affect the band's popularity? Were they famous before that, or did that? Wow, I need to see this. This is like not computing. You know what I mean? This feels like Sting time traveled. Did Sting get a nose job? His nose looks larger here. Sting. Did Sting get a nose job? Y'all, I think Sting had a nose job. That looks like a little rhinoplasty. His younger nose looks more bulbous. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to throw around accusations. This is weird. This is weird.
Battles and their place in British cultural history. The success of Quadrophenia fueled a renewed fascination with mod culture, leading to another wave of young people adopting the mod look and lifestyle, and firmly cementing the legacy of the mods in popular culture as both a symbol of youthful rebellion and a unique chapter in the story of 20th century Britain. Their love for city life, with its fast pace and vibrant social scenes, has carried over into today's urban cultures, where style, music, and nightlife are still highly valued. Mods were culturally curious, embracing diverse musical genres like American R&B, ska, and soul.
I admire their open-mindedness. That's the main thing that I like from the mods.
This openness to different cultures and influences persists today, as young people frequently explore a range of global music styles, fashion trends, and subcultural elements. Mods were known for customizing their scooters, clothing, and even record collections. This hands-on approach to creating a personal style continues to influence modern DIY culture, where people take pride in curating and customizing their belongings. Mods preferred unique or high-quality items that set them apart. This mindset aligns with today's interest in vintage clothing and niche music collections where quality and uniqueness are highly valued. The mod subculture ruled when the greatest creative movement in modern history began. We have much to learn from the early mods, their obstacles, and the high standards and freedom to live for the day. If you're going to enjoy your life, you might as well dress for the occasion.
Were you and your friends mods or rockers?
Well, we're mods when we're dressed up, you know. Mods.
What caused all this trouble yesterday?
Boredom.
Take you home with me.
Yeah, it's boredom.
Put you in my house. Boom, boom. Oh, tell me. I love the way you walk. I'm crazy about your walk.
The best things in life are free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I need. See the girl with the diamond ring?
Ray Charles.
She knows how to shake that thing. I can't tell you. I can't reveal her name until I say that you need me. Say you need me. You'll always be mine. Always be mine. Busy in the head now. Feel blue. Things you say will leave it true.
Ah.
They seek him here. They seek him there. People try to put us to down. Talking about my generation.
That, this musical montage towards the end starts with American blues, R&B, and it goes to the mod stuff, and I can hear the influence very directly, you know? Like, that's white dudes playing blues and R&B, you know? You can hear it. After watching this, now I think I would be a mod. I feel like those early days of mod were kind of superficial because it was all about style, but that open-mindedness led to other things in the hippie movement and the love and peace stuff. Interesting. Y'all, we're all mods now, you know? Anyone under the age of 80 is a mod, sort of, really, you know? We got that mod mentality, which is good. You know, it's interesting that this arose from boredom because these young people were not being shipped off to war, but now with smartphones, kids aren't bored anymore. There's no excuse for being bored. Like any moment of boredom, you can pick up a phone and be entertained. What is that doing to us? Be sure to go to this channel Freewheeling and like and subscribe. They do a lot of these culture documentaries. Very interesting. And, you know, I've mentioned it before, but my whole reference for this time period in Britain is the Beatles. Obsessed with the Beatles. But I could see how the Beatles were kind of being young people in Britain at the time, you know? Be sure to go to Freewheeling and like and subscribe. And if you made it this far in the video, give me a like and subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Like to thank my patrons. Like to thank my buy me a coffee people. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.